The legendary Dinish. Mate, thank you so much for coming on Northern Vibe.
I'm glad we could finally make it happen. It's been a while.
I know, right? But look, you've actually got a coat of arms and you've got a motto, and I absolutely love it. Your motto is through hardship to the stars. Bro, love it. But it means something to you. So tell us how you come up with that and why.
I think hardship is something that I always used to avoid, especially as a teenager. And I guess we do, right? Like we seek comfort and we seek the easy road sometimes. And I used to be very much like that. I used to be very much, I want to be comfortable. I want to avoid hardship. I don't want to. But I've been thrown into hardship a few times in my life. And I guess one was when I was a kid. And although it wasn't as hard for me as it was for my parents, we lived in Sri Lanka, and a lot of people in Sri Lanka went through hardship at that time through the war. Then I had depression when I was in law school, and that was a bit of a dark time in my life. And then I had a spinal cord injury and became paralyzed, and that's part of the way how we ended up having this conversation today. So hardship, it's it's happened to me, and sure, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't, perhaps I can even say it wasn't enjoyable at the time, but it's really made me who I am today, and it's led me to be here. It's led me to some amazing experiences in life. It's led me to find purpose, and I feel like I have an incredible life today. I feel like I'm so grateful. I feel like I'm so happy. I feel on top of the world. But it's all come through hardship. And had it not been for that hardship, I wouldn't be here today. So I think a lot of the beautiful things in this world come out of hardship. And if we are to go for the stars, if we are to reach the stars, it is through hardship. So that's what it means to me.
Mate, and I dead set reckon that is cool. I've one of the pleasures of being on Northern Vibe is I get to interview a lot of people, and they're always awesomely candid. So, I get a lot of former guests watch Northern Vibe. If you're one of them and you've come on and you've borne your soul, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I know the listeners really do too. But a constant theme that has come up, because I've spoken to people that are dying, people suffering from long-term cancer, people who've had transplants, people with brain injuries, all this kind of stuff. One chap who's he's got MS, quadriplegic, uh, and just people who have suffered in other ways in their life, kind of like normal suffering. So, they've gone through a breakup or, something else has happened to them. And the consistent theme, Dinesh, is that when those people have embraced their suffering, it's made them better. And if you think of how counter instinctual that is in our society today, and how much we're kind of like, and I'm not knocking Buddhism, there's a lot I like about Buddhism, but one of the central tenements of Buddhism is to avoid suffering. And that's logical. Like again, like I'm raising that point, not to like demean the religion, but to raise a point that that is a logical thing to do. And yet here we are having a discussion indicating that embracing suffering is the better path. Like, how weird is that?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised in a Buddhist country. I think
Yeah.
it has like 70% Buddhist population. But maybe one of the nuances of Buddhism is that the aim of it is eventually to avoid suffering. Like, so if you follow this path to enlightenment, you'll be at a point where you don't suffer anymore, which is nirvana.
Mhm.
But I think Buddhism teaches that to live is to suffer,
Hmm.
and to be born is to suffer. So yeah, I agree. I think suffering is just a part of life, and everything is so many things are painful. Um, but I've also loved this poem and it's from a old samurai. I think it's from the 17th century or something like that.
Bro, you got to give it to us. You can't leave us
Yeah.
hanging.
So it's a haiku, and it says, "My barn having burnt down, I can see the moon." So, sometimes we have to burn down the barn, or we have to have it burnt down for us to see the moon. We carry so much just BS around with us, right? We are attached to so much nonsense. And I've been in my life, I've been attached to certain friendships and social connections and material goods. And I thought that defined me, and I thought that was happiness. But a couple of times in my life, out of circumstance, out of a car accident, all these things were ripped away from me. And I actually eventually realized, far out, like that, it's the loss of all those things has set me free. So I think to experience suffering sometimes allows us to know ourselves a bit more and to see the light and to see the moon. And maybe that's why we do all these hard things like climb mountains or run marathons or do the hard stuff. And actually, there's a book called Do Hard Things, and and suffering maybe allows us to discover ourselves a bit more.
100%. And look, we're referring to these things obliquely, and I'm aware of your history, but some of the listeners may not be. And you've referred to the fact that you had depression and you had a car accident. If you don't mind, would you mind delving into specifically, and we'll go backwards. So this terrible car accident, what it did to you, and also the depression that you were suffering from when you were getting your first degree. So just to give people some
Yeah,
contextual understanding of
yeah, of
what happened.
course. Well, it's so 2024 now. I just turned 40, and when I was 24 years old, so nearly 15 years ago now, actually. Actually, when was it? So 2010. It's 2024 now. Just turned 40, but in 2010, in January, I was involved in a car accident. I was in medical school at the time. It was a wet road. My car aquaplaned and had a rollover, and I was paralyzed from the chest down. And I lost the use of my fingers in that accident as well. So it's something that, in my early 20s changed the trajectory of my life irrevocably for forever. And it was such a brutal, violent experience that took so long to recover from and to find meaning from. So that was one. And then when I was in my late teens, very early 20s, probably late teens more so, I experienced depression, and I was a law student at the time. So I never really been depressed after the spinal cord injury, but at that time I experienced the pits of depression, and it was the darkest time of my life. It was so challenging, and I think the depression was actually a lot more paralyzing than the spinal cord injury has been in a way. So those two things were pivotal moments for me.
Now, mate, I'm going to come and ask a direct question that may seem a little odd. Would you swap it? Like, knowing that I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not asking would
Yep.
you have the insight without the suffering, but understanding that your insights and your character, which has been developed incredibly by these things, is inextricably linked to these events. Would you change it?
So in the days after the spinal cord injury happened, after that car accident happened, in the weeks after it happened, and even in the first couple of years after it happened, I was just like, man, if I could just turn back the clock and not be driving that night, not have that accident, I would have. The depression, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it But I never thought about it those days. But after the accident, I thought about it a lot. But today, so we're 14 years later, and there is so much good that has come out of it. And life isn't easy, right? Life is still not easy. I still use a wheelchair. I still there are differences in my life now that it's vastly it's not my body is not what it was before the accident.
Yeah.
It's different. So that it comes with different challenges and different ways of living and different things that I need to think about. So it's certainly not a easier life by any means, but there is so much good that has come out of it. And would I trade that? And I wonder where I would be today. I certainly wouldn't be having this conversation with you, and I don't know what I'd be doing if this hadn't happened. So I think now I would not trade it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm with my me and my mum has taken this journey. We've I've lost friends. I've lost my dad, and he walked away from our family when this happened. I've met so many people. I've made friends. I've had people that have come into my life after this happened who've been there, and I would have never met them if this didn't happen. So all those things, all the experiences that I've had, all of that is a big price to pay to not have this, and I don't think I'd pay that price now. So that's a really important question, and I think it's a powerful question. And no, I wouldn't
Wow. You
I
would
wouldn't
pick
change
up
anything.
you would pick up that cross and walk with it again. And again, just to give some, because we've been doing this, and I suppose I should have been a little bit better and got you to say who you are and you're a doctor and all that kind of stuff. But like, you're a doctor. So tell us you know, tell us at what level you're at and what your daily duties are, like where you're working now.
Um, so I work in the emergency department at the Gold Coast University Hospital as a registrar. I work every now and again at the Bow Desert Hospital as well. I do research at Griffith University and teach at Bond University. And I'm very lucky. I get to do a few other bits and pieces around the place. Like I work with a company called HealthyLife. So I have a very rich and full and fortunate life, I feel. So
Yeah.
that's what I get to do.
And you're a published author.
Well, yeah, I had the privilege of writing this book, and again, I'm like, man, how on earth did life come to this? Like, I was I was just a kid from Sri Lanka, right? We moved here when I was 10 years old to Australia, and I often think, how did this happen? Sometimes with, my mom's a really important part of my life. And sometimes I'm like, I don't understand how this has happened, and I'm just in awe of life.
Mate, it it's kind of inspirational. I don't want to sound like a toss-up, but bro, it is. Like seriously. Um, and the great thing about this is, have you had it? I my understanding is, and please correct this if it's wrong. You've never had any issues with patients. So, like, this doctor comes rolling up on his wheelchair and his hips don't work 100%. Um, you've never have you ever had any issues from any patients from that?
Nah, no, never actually, not once. So I'm blown away by that. I'm so grateful, first of all, because this is why I do the job. It's for
You're a
the
legend.
patients.
You're a legend.
And we we work for systems, and we work within systems, we work within institutions. But I'm often reminded, particularly because of that actually no, I work for the patient. So it's just been really eye-opening for me to see how society is, and it's been it's been heartwarming to see how the community has been.
Mm. Right. And look, no disrespect, you know, to your colleagues, because trust me, I love the medical profession. And a lot of my relatives are medicos, so it kind of like just comes with the territory. So I'm kind of like vicariously, I get really defensive of medical people. You know what I'm saying? Because that's my cousin. You know what I'm saying? But you did get a little bit of pushback from the registration board, isn't that the case? Can you?
No, actually, the registration board was amazing. So the medical board was incredible.
Yep.
But it was more the uh, I guess the institutions that were going to be the employers that were more challenging.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So no, the medical board was incredible. APRA was incredible. All of that. I was registered on time. And then of course they made it safe for me to start my career,
Mhm.
both for me and the patients. But no, they were great. But it was more the employment side of things that were tricky to navigate. And we see this actually when it comes to disability constantly, that employment is hard for people with disability, um, which is, I suppose, another big topic for one day.
Yeah. Well, dive in. Let's go.
No, I think so. We still have an employment gap for the community of people with disability all around the world. And I think the estimates are that there are 1 in 6 people on this planet that live with some kind of disability. But I think economically and socially, because we often talk about the human rights aspect of this, which I think is, yeah, it's important, of course, because those are the values that we build a lot of things out of. But I think even when we look at it economically, it is critical because economically we need to have people participate. We need to have people earn money so they can pay for things, even afford better healthcare. And then we need people to be paying taxes. It's so good. So that there are, apart from the human rights reasons, there are economic reasons why we need to crack this. So disability employment is a critical thing.
Practically, what can be done? Because like and without, because the impression I got from you, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not a employ someone because of this kind of chat.
Mm.
You're like, hey, this person can do that job. There's a couple of little massagey things that we can do to employ that person so that they're happy, they're contributing their abilities, skills to the community. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I don't think many I don't think anyone wants a easy ride, or I don't think anyone wants like, hey, you know, give me like I don't think anyone wants to um, fill a quota or whatever any of those things is. I think everyone wants to contribute and everyone wants to bring their skills and passions to life.
Yep.
So practically, we have all these laws and we have committees and we have strategies and there are all these high level things that go on, but I think actually what we need to do is just say yes, give one person at a time an opportunity, and if we fail, that's fine, right? We've tried, we've failed, and that's okay. Then that's good for the person, that's good for the employer. We've all learned something, we can move on. But it's not okay not to try. And I think we're all pleasantly surprised if there's a lot of benefits to employing people with disability, and the data shows that there's less absenteeism, there's more productivity, there's more innovation, there's better work culture. So I just say give someone a shot, say yes, figure out how to do it, and be pleasantly surprised.
Do you want to talk about Sri Lanka and the push factors, the pull factors to you and your family coming and,
Mm.
frankly, thank God, coming to Australia?
I feel very much so with identity. I'm an Australian. I feel very much an Australian.
Yeah.
And I feel like I owe a debt of uh, gratitude to the country that took me in as a kid. from a place of war, and has given me education and healthcare and all this stuff. So for those reasons, I feel like an Australian. But Sri Lanka is where I was born. And Sri Lanka is a beautiful place. Naturally, there's amazing beaches, there's jungles, there's wildlife, there's fruit, and oh man, it's incredible. It's quite a thing.
And the
The te
food.
Yeah, the food is just
I hear the
um,
beer's good too.
there is beer actually. Yeah, yeah, there's beer. There's the weather is just sits around 25, 30 degrees all year round. It's great. And so there's all that, and there's history, right? There's I think one of the oldest world's oldest hospitals is found in Sri Lanka. There's ancient architecture, there's palaces, there's all this stuff. So it's amazing, but it's also a place that's gone through very, very tough times. It's been through colonization from the Portuguese, Dutch, and then the English. So my mom's side of the family actually has Portuguese names, family names in the past, and there's some Dutch in there and English. So it's been through all that, and then a civil war, which lasted 3 decades, and a political war in that. So it's been through incredibly tough times. Those wars ended in the late to 20 early, so around 2010 or just before 2010. And then there was economic problems. So in the late 2010s and maybe early 2020s, inflation was in the 40s and 50%. Interest rates were high. People couldn't afford anything. There was no fuel. There was no electricity. People died waiting in line to fill up their car. So there was all that as well. So it's this country that's been incredibly rich with nature and history and all this stuff, but it's also been a country where people have really gone through tough times. And that's the reality of Sri Lanka. Um, and I guess it's hard to talk about in a way, I'm not disparaging it,
Mm.
but these are the things that have happened to the nation.
Yeah. It's observational. It's not a judgment kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. Okay. And so when you came to Australia, you said that you are Aussie as. No worries about that. But like, so when you came here, mate, like it must have been a big cultural difference. Like, and I lived overseas when I was a child, so I have some insight into this. And me personally, my experiences were mostly positive. There was a little bit of, wow, you're from, which varied, but like the definitive for me experience was really, really positive. So, but what was it like for you?
Um, so Sri Lanka also, I learned English most of my life. But there are certain things about Western culture that's not there, like simple things, even like swimming pools and supermarkets and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't really that exposed to. Um, so there were things like that that were very different about this country. But I had a grasp of the language and I could speak. But when I first came here from Sri Lanka, there were huge contrasts in that the infrastructure of Australia is incredible. Like just seeing I still talk with friends who migrated to this country from various parts of the world. We often take stock that the roads are beautiful, right? They're well maintained and sure there's a bit of traffic, but it's
Well,
beautiful.
good roads.
Good, yeah.
Mate, we
Seriously.
are talking about Australia here, like big country down the south, just south of New Guinea. Like,
That's exactly right. But honestly, man, you can't take that for granted, right? Because where I grew up, you can't have
Yeah.
a
Oh,
good car because the suspension's going to be destroyed
yeah.
in about a year. So, everyone, and
Yeah.
uh, it's so even simple things like that, like there's the rubbish is collected by the council
Yeah.
once a week, and there's Medicare, so you can go to a GP or a hospital. I
Yeah.
mean, the hospital I work in is incredible. I have read that it is one of the most expensive buildings at one point in the late 2010s. It was one of the most expensive built in human history. And there is a single room for the patients. There's a piano in the foyer. There's a food court. There's there's a helipad. I'm thinking, man, this is free for people. So we have those things. We have police. You can call triple O, and then someone's going to come. It's incredible. So just the contrast of having access to those things is different. I think it is a very, we're really quick to criticize
Yeah.
what we have, but to be honest, this has been a place where I was accepted, and there's a lot of diversity in this country. There's a lot of, so I've had every opportunity to succeed here. So there are so many things that are very different about Australia from Sri Lanka, but I think the thing that gets me often is the infrastructure and services we have. So
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Look, can I ask you to be critical about ourselves as a people? And I mean you and me and like every other person listening to this. Do we in Australia and the West generally take things a little bit too much for granted, do you think? Like this miracle that we live in? And it's a loaded question. And
No, it's an easy answer, and the answer is yes. Like yes, yeah, because we're very comfortable, and I think it's easy to forget what's been built for us. I was so earlier this year, I had the opportunity to fly from. I got the opportunity to go and talk at Stanford University, which is in San Francisco. So I was on this plane flying across the Pacific, and the entertainment system was broken up for a while. But I did get to watch one movie, and it was a true story about World War II. So I'm watching this movie, and there are all these young guys who went to fight, who went to battle, and they sacrificed their lives, and people paid a real price, right? People back at home were making things. They were contributing to the war effort and the whole. And I thought, man, it's because of them I now have the privilege of flying across the ocean in this aeroplane, and to land in this other country, and to and and that's an incredible thing, right? And do we honor that? Do we fight for that? Do we try to make what we've been gifted better? I'm not sure. I'm not sure anymore. Like I
yeah,
don't know if we understand how good we have it. I met someone recently at a wedding, at an African wedding, which was an incredible experience. But uh, she was from Rwanda, and this wasn't that long ago. This was in the last, it wasn't that long ago. She said she came here as a refugee from Rwanda, but she said, I've also had my own journey, and can I show you? And I said, yeah.
oh,
So she lifted up her pants to show me her knees and legs, and there were gunshot wounds through them. And she said, yeah, I was shot, and I woke up. I don't know how much time had passed, but I woke up because bugs were eating my body, and then I dragged myself to safety, and I was like, man, like this is the world. People live in this, and how can what do we complain about? Like
100%.
there are people, yeah, there are people with real problems, right? Like
My
So
God.
yeah,
Yeah.
we do. I think we do. The answer is yeah.
I don't want this to turn into too much of a love fest. My wrap-up question is going to be the book. Bro, so cool. You showed me, you put it up there before, and I'll be putting the hyperlinks in. Tell us about the book, about writing it, about that feeling when you first held that sucker in your hand and you looked at that. And how's it going sales-wise? Because I understand it's going pretty good. Like looking at the internet here.
No, sometimes I'll be at an airport or a bookstore or somewhere and I'll see it there and I'm like, far out. How has this happened to my life? And I'll still take a photo with it and um so like I'm just shocked at where life has come and I can't believe that I got the opportunity to write a book. And actually it's there's a group over in Canada that's wanting to turn it into a TV series. So there are some they've got a writer and they've got producers and they've got all this stuff and they want to turn it into a TV series. So those things are happening. But the writing of it was just it's quite an experience. Like I just thought, you know what, I'll just start from the start and go through the finish. And one thing I realized having just turned 40, I feel like I've lived a couple of lifetimes. And I feel like I've lived 120 years worth of life, maybe. And I'm just writing, I'm like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. And I can't believe that happened. So it's more a reflection of how far life has come and how much has happened in that time. And yeah, I just yeah, I don't know, man. I just I'm in awe of life is how I would put it.
Right. 100%. All right. So, I mean, I always ask anyway, and I think I think that statement sums it all up. But like, any words of wisdom for the good listeners of Northern Vibe? Any words of advice besides
Yeah.
being stay in awe of life, which is going to be the title of this.
I think uh for me anyway, gratitude has been really important, to be grateful for everything that's been gifted to me, to think about where I am and how we've got here. Perspective has been really important just to understand that our fellow human on the other side of the world is um, not having a good time like we are right now, or maybe not having food like we are. So I think having perspective's been really important. And I think I feel like we need to have the courage these days in this time to really fight for the things that we believe in and not to get comfortable where we are right now because the I think it was once said that the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance or
Yeah.
something like that.
It's on every RSL statue, which is in every town. Like you can go to some flea-bitten little town with 150 people. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Yeah,
Amen.
and I think we have that, right? We have so much, so much. We have free healthcare, we have access to education, we have food, we have infrastructure, we have these beautiful things, and we even things like a fair go, right? Like we throw this term around like a fair go, mate, but actually it means something in this country. It means that we believe in giving everyone a fair opportunity. But the price of all that is eternal vigilance, and I think we need to be just vigilant and to fight for those things and to be courageous. So those are my little messages from our conversation, Matt.
Well, bro, you've been more than generous with your time. I've loved dead set every second of this, and I knew this was going to be a ripper. And for me, I got to say, it warms my. It's no secret to the listeners of Northern Vibe that I'm a Catholic. It warms my Catholic heart to hear this idea of embracing suffering, because that's kind of like real central. It's like, bro, see that cross? pick that sucker up, hug it, drag it. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you're gonna suffer on it, but bro, it's just like, and it's so counter-instinctual. But and these incredible messages of that are like all this positivity that comes out of all of these things, and this understanding and perspective. So thank you so much for your time and insights.